My father stood in the middle of a crowded airport and said 4 words that revealed everything he had hidden for 5 years. Just go home, Mom. 11 people heard it. Not one of them said a word. I was the 12th. Before we go any further, if stories like this one matter to you, if you believe that truth deserves to be spoken out loud, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the like button. Because what I am about to tell you is the kind of story that most families keep buried forever. This one didn't stay buried. And the reason it didn't was one torn boarding pass. Her name was Hazel. 74 years old. Retired school teacher. 34 years shaping 3rd graders into human beings at the same elementary school in a quiet Tennessee town. She raised 2 children almost entirely alone after her husband Earl died of lung cancer 18 years earlier. She never remarried. Never even considered it. She said Earl was the only man stubborn enough to love her the way she needed to be loved. Hazel lived in the same house Earl had bought in 1981. A 3-bedroom ranch on a shaded street where she knew every neighbor by name and every crack in the sidewalk by memory. She ironed her napkins. She sent thank you cards the same day she received a gift. She wrapped birthday presents in newspaper because she believed wrapping paper was wasteful. And for 22 years after Earl died, she saved. Every paycheck. Every tax refund. Every summer vacation she skipped. Every Christmas she bought herself one small gift so the rest could go into the account. She would sit at her kitchen table on New Year's Eve with a pencil and a calculator and write the running total on a slip of paper. She kept those slips in a drawer like a private record of her own discipline. $212,000. She was proud of that number. She had built it from nothing, and she believed it would be there when she needed it. She was wrong. But she didn't know that yet. I am her granddaughter, Joanna. I was 31 years old, working in geriatric care at a hospital in Knoxville, and I had spent 7 years watching elderly patients be quietly taken advantage of by the people closest to them. I knew the patterns. I recognized the signs. What I didn't know was that those same patterns were happening 4 to 5 minutes from where I worked, in a house I had grown up visiting, to a woman I loved more than almost anyone on earth. I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. It started at Thanksgiving. 12 of us around Hazel's dining table. Turkey, cornbread dressing, the green bean casserole she made from scratch every single year. My dad Richard stood up with his glass raised like a man about to make a toast the whole world needed to hear. He said he had been planning something. A family trip. 3 weeks in Europe. Rome, Florence, Paris, London. All of us together. The table exploded. Cousins grabbed their phones to look up the Colosseum. My stepmom Brenda started talking about shopping in Paris. My Aunt Diane's husband Greg asked about the flights. The kids were already arguing about who would get which hotel room. And at the end of the table, my grandmother sat very still. Her eyes were bright. She pressed both hands flat on the tablecloth the way she always did when something moved her deeply. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, I have never left this country. Your grandfather always said we would go to Paris someday. My dad explained the cost. Each household would contribute their share. Flights, hotels, transportation. About $6,000 to $5,000 total for 12 people. He looked at Hazel and said her portion would be $30,000 from her retirement fund. She didn't hesitate for even a second. I am 74 years old. If not now, when? She wrote the check that same weekend. $30,000 from the account she had spent 2 decades building. And then she walked to the hallway closet and pulled out the old leather suitcase that had belonged to Earl. Brown, cracked along one seam, patched with duct tape from a trip they had taken together 30 years ago. She began packing weeks early. She laid her passport on top of her folded clothes like it was something precious. Like it was a promise finally being kept. My dad smiled when she handed over the check. Something about that smile stayed with me longer than it should have. I couldn't explain why at the time. I filed it away and forgot about it. I shouldn't have forgotten. December. 5 in the morning. The parking garage at McGee Tyson Airport in Knoxville was cold enough to see your breath. 12 of us walked into the terminal together, dragging luggage, holding coffee, half awake and buzzing with the particular electricity of people about to leave the country for the first time. Hazel moved slowly. She leaned on her cane with one hand and pulled Earl's old suitcase with the other. She was wearing her good navy coat, the one she saved for church and funerals. She had combed her hair and put on her pearl earrings. We reached the check-in counter. Names were called one by one, boarding passes printed and handed over. Richard, Brenda, Diane, Greg, the kids, me, Hazel Farrell. The gate agent typed. Typed again. Looked up. I don't have a reservation under that name. Hazel opened the plastic boarding pass holder she had been carrying for weeks. Inside was a printed itinerary. City names, hotel names, dates arranged in neat columns. It looked exactly like a real ticket. It wasn't. There was no booking reference. No confirmation number. No record anywhere in any airline system that Hazel Farrell had ever been booked on any flight. She looked at my dad. He barely glanced at her. Mom, I must have forgotten to book yours. I'm sorry. Just go home. We'll FaceTime you from Rome. He said it the way you cancel a lunch reservation. The way you tell someone a store is closed. Casual. Final. Already moving on. 11 people heard it. The gate agent heard it. An elderly couple waiting in line turned to look. The woman shook her head just slightly, the way people do when they recognize something they have seen before and hoped never to see again. Hazel closed the boarding pass holder. She put it back in her purse. Her hands trembled. Her face did not change. My father did not lower his voice. He did not pull her aside. He did not offer to fix it or delay or find another way. He just turned back toward the security line and kept walking. Diane kept walking. Brenda adjusted her scarf and kept walking. Greg studied the departure board and kept walking. Not one person turned around. Not one person said wait. Not one person said she paid $30,000. My boarding pass was in my right hand. I looked at it. I looked at her. And I tore it in half. My dad turned around when he heard it. Joanna, what are you doing? I'm going home with Grandma. Diane didn't even stop walking. Don't be dramatic. Brenda said it without turning her head. Your grandma wouldn't enjoy Europe anyway. She can barely walk. That sentence hit differently than my dad's. His was calculated. Hers was careless. Standing in that airport at 5 in the morning, I was not sure which one was worse. I picked up Earl's suitcase. It was heavier than it should have been. She had packed everything. 3 weeks of clothes. Her reading glasses. Her Bible. A small bag of butterscotch candies she always kept in her purse because she liked to offer them to people who seemed like they needed something sweet. We walked to the parking lot. Nobody followed. Nobody called after us. The automatic doors closed behind us and the December air felt different than it had 20 minutes earlier. Colder. Sharper. Like waking up from something you should have woken up from much earlier. Hazel reached for my hand. Her fingers were thin and cold. You didn't have to do that, she said. Yes, I did. We drove home in silence. I carried her suitcase inside. She sat down in Earl's armchair and stared at the wall. I made tea. She didn't drink it. That night I slept in the guest room. The mattress was thin. The furnace rattled every 20 minutes. I lay there in the dark and I started counting. Not sheep. Not seconds. I started counting what I had seen and what I had not yet understood. The porch railing was loose. The gutters were sagging. The kitchen faucet dripped into a bowl she left in the sink every night. The thermostat was set to 62 degrees in December. She wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation. I had asked my dad about it once and he had said she just didn't like spending money. I had believed him because I had no reason not to. That was my mistake. I had every reason. Morning came gray and cold. I woke to the sound of a skillet on the stove. Hazel was already in the kitchen, hair combed, house slippers on, cracking eggs into the cast-iron skillet that Earl had bought at a flea market in 1973. She told me that every time she used it, every single time, and every time, I listened like it was the first. I looked at the fridge while she cooked. Eggs, half a gallon of milk, butter, a jar of pickles. The medicine bottles lined up on the counter were all generic brands. I recognized 2 of them. Both were cheaper alternatives to name brands she had taken for years. I said nothing. After breakfast I walked to the front door and looked at the mail slot. The basket underneath was stuffed with catalogs and old flyers. But there were no bank statements. No financial documents. No account summaries. Nothing from Social Security. Not a single piece of paper that told Hazel Ferrell what was happening with her own money. 7 years working in geriatric care had taught me to notice what was missing before I noticed what was wrong. I knocked on the neighbor's door. Loretta had lived next door for 19 years. She was the kind of woman who noticed everything and said nothing unless you asked. So I asked. She came over that afternoon with a casserole and we sat on the porch while Hazel rested. Loretta spoke quietly, choosing her words carefully. Hazel had stopped going to Cracker Barrel with her church friends 2 years ago. Said she couldn't afford it. My dad came by every other Tuesday and took the mail from the box before Hazel even got up. Loretta had watched from her kitchen window. He never rang the bell. Never went inside. Just grabbed the mail and drove away. 2 years ago, Hazel used to bring a pie to every block party on the street. For the past 2 years, she brought nothing. Said she was cutting back. That night I called Hazel's bank and identified myself as her granddaughter. I'm sorry, you are not an authorized party on this account. The only authorized signer is Richard Ferrell. The tightening in my chest turned into something else entirely. I found the document in the spare bedroom filing cabinet. 6 pages, notarized, dated 5 years earlier. Durable power of attorney granting my father full financial authority over every account, every asset, and every legal matter connected to Hazel May Ferrell. He said it was just in case something happened to me, Hazel said from the doorway. She was leaning against the frame, arms crossed. So he could pay my bills if I couldn't. I photographed every page. I put the document back exactly where I found it. Grandma, do you know your account balances? She shook her head. Richard handles that. He says I have plenty. The next morning I took her to the bank. The branch manager's name was Tina. She was professional and visibly uncomfortable when she pulled up the accounts. Mrs. Ferrell, your primary retirement savings account had a balance of $212,000 5 years ago. She turned the screen. Current balance is $41,600. Hazel leaned forward. That can't be right. Tina printed the full transaction history. 5 years of withdrawals. I read every line with my hands flat on the table so they would stay still. $3,000 here. $5,000 there. $12,000 for home repairs in 2022, the same year Hazel's gutters started sagging. $8,000 for medical expenses in 2023, a month when Hazel's insurance had covered every bill. The $30,000 from 2 months ago labeled simply, Travel Fund. Over $140,000. Every withdrawal authorized by one name. Richard Ferrell. Hazel sat in that vinyl chair and picked up the printout. She read it once. Folded it in half, then in quarters. Opened her purse and placed it carefully next to the empty boarding pass holder. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She sat very still, the way people do when the world shifts and they need a moment to catch up to what they already know is true. We drove home. She stared out the window the entire way. When I pulled into the driveway, she put her hand on my arm. How long? She asked. At least 5 years, I said. She got out of the car, walked to the front door, and for the first time since the airport, I watched her hand stop trembling. She went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Then closed it. Then opened it again. She wasn't looking for food. I saved that money for 22 years, she said. Her back was to me. Every paycheck. Every summer I skipped vacation. Every New Year's Eve I sat at this table with a pencil and a calculator and wrote down the total. She turned around. $212,000. I was proud of that number. She went to her room. The door closed softly. She didn't come out for dinner. I sat at the kitchen table with the bank printout beside my plate and I ate alone and I read every single line again. Column after column. Year after year. Each transaction stamped with his authorization code. Later that night, at 11 o'clock, her bedroom door opened. She came out in her robe and her reading glasses and sat across from me at the table. The printout was still between us. She folded her hands. She looked at me. And she said it simply. No drama. No tears. 5 words that told me exactly who she was. Help me fix this, baby. Not revenge. Not punishment. Not make him pay. Fix. Restore. Reclaim. I said, we need a lawyer, Grandma. Someone who specializes in this. She nodded. I don't want Richard in prison. This isn't about prison. It's about getting your money back and making sure he can never take any more. She looked at the printout. Your grandpa would have burned the house down. We are not burning anything. We are going to be smarter than that. She smiled. It was small and tired, but it was real. Earl always said he married up. We sat at that table until midnight. I started a list on a yellow legal pad. By the time I turned off the kitchen light, I had a plan. And a plan is the first thing that separates grief from action. I won't walk you through every legal step. What matters is this. Marcus Webb was the best elder law attorney in East Tennessee. He did not lose. Within 9 days of our first meeting, the power of attorney had been revoked by emergency court order. Hazel's accounts were frozen. Her mail was redirected to her own mailbox. Her name was placed as the sole authorized party on every account she owned, for the first time in 5 years. Richard's credit card was declined in Venice. He texted Hazel. She read the message, turned her phone face down on the armrest, and went back to her crossword puzzle. He came home early. He walked through her door tan from Rome and confused and angry, and he found the table covered in organized folders with colored tabs and a bank printout 3 pages long and a man in a blue tie who introduced himself as the attorney representing his mother. I watched my father sit down at that table, the same table where he had announced the Europe trip that was never meant to include her, and I watched him hear his own words read back to him one by one. The email was the moment the room went completely silent. Marcus read it aloud without inflection. A message from my father to my Aunt Diane, sent 3 months before the trip. Subject: Trip logistics. Don't book Mom's ticket. Tell her we'll handle it. She won't even notice the money's gone. Brenda's hand went to her mouth. Diane stared at the table. My father's face went from red to white like someone had pulled every light from behind his eyes. I spoke for the first time since the presentation had begun. I kept my voice steady. The same voice I use at the hospital when I am telling a family something they do not want to hear. You told her you forgot. But you never bought the ticket. You planned to leave her at that gate from the beginning. He said she wasn't going to enjoy it anyway. She could barely walk. And then Hazel spoke. She unfolded her hands and placed them flat on the table. Her back was straight. Her pearl earrings caught the light. She looked at her son with the kind of stillness that only comes from having already grieved something completely. I saved that money for 22 years, she said. Every paycheck. Every summer I didn't travel. Every Christmas I gave myself one gift so I could put the rest away. Her voice did not shake. I signed that paper because you said you wanted to help. I believed you because you are my son. Because a mother should not have to check behind her own child. A pause. I do not want you in prison. I do not want to never see you again. But I want my name on my own accounts. I want my mail in my own mailbox. She leaned forward. Just slightly. Just enough. And I want you to understand something. What you did to me at that airport. That is the moment I stopped trusting you. She repeated his words back to him slowly. Clearly. The way a teacher repeats something for a student who was not paying attention. I forgot your ticket. Just go home. She shook her head once. You did not forget anything. You just thought I would not matter enough for anyone to stay. She looked at me. But someone stayed. My father left without another word. The door closed hard enough to rattle the cast iron skillet on its hook. Through the window I watched his truck back out of the driveway. He was already on the phone before he reached the street. 2 months later, the court ruled. $140,000 to be repaid in full. Court imposed lien on his personal assets. Diane ordered to return $25,000. Adult Protective Services substantiated the investigation. The life insurance beneficiary change was reversed and declared fraudulent. Richard was formally flagged for elder financial exploitation under Tennessee state law. Hazel declined to pursue criminal charges. She said the record would follow him regardless. The gutter was replaced. The porch railing was fixed. The faucet no longer drips. The thermostat is set to 72 degrees. The fridge is full. She goes to Cracker Barrel with her church friends every Friday again. Loretta brings a casserole every Sunday. She says Hazel looks 10 years younger. Hazel says she feels it. Earl's leather suitcase is back in the hallway closet. Inside it are 2 plane tickets to Paris. Hazel and me. October. I want to see the Eiffel Tower at night, she told me. Earl always said it looks like it's breathing. I drive to Mobile every Saturday now. 4 to 5 minutes each way. I don't mind. People tell me I was brave for tearing that boarding pass. I don't think of it that way. Leaving would have been easy. Staying was just what was right. If you have an elderly parent or grandparent, ask them one question tonight. Do they know their own account balance? Do they receive their own mail? Do they have full access to their own money? Don't assume. Don't wait. Because by the time you notice something is missing, it has usually been gone for a very long time. She saved for 22 years. He spent it in 5. And the only thing that stopped him was one granddaughter who chose to stay. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories like this one. I will see you in the next.